The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everyone, co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, Podcasting After Dark would not be possible. If you would like to help the show grow, please consider signing up at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. You can also support the show by purchasing one of our awesome t-shirt designs on our merch store at podcastingafterdark.com, or by picking up a copy of 7 Winters Alone by David Irons on paperback, hardback, or Kindle. Just search for 7 Winters Alone on Amazon or click on the link in the show notes. A free way to help out is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those reviews are huge for us and really helps get the show in front of new listeners. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us over these past few years. It really means the world to us.
Welcome to our Patreon exclusive interview series for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Tonight's interview is with the star of the video game Mortal Kombat 3, actor Lia Montelongo.
Lia Montelongo, thank you so much for being on Podcasting After Dark. This is really cool to have someone in the video game world a part of our show.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you and hang out for a little bit.
Oh, thank you so much. We're both big fans of Mortal Kombat, and famously in Mortal Kombat 3, you played Queen Sindel, who is a fan favorite character. But I have to just geek out real quick. I still have my Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero game, and you played Serena in that game. I definitely wanted to dive into that, but I just wanted to tell you that I've beaten this game like 3 times because I love Mortal Kombat, and I love specifically the mythology behind the story and the characters and their relationships. And I still play every Mortal Kombat game to date. So I'm happy to also see that Sindel came back in the newer versions, and it's a character that keeps living on in newer iterations of the game, and fans really love her. But can you give us a little bit of a backstory on how you got involved with Mortal Kombat 3?
Sure. I love that you love Serena, though. So we'll chat about that in a second. I've spoken a few times before about this, and I always go to, it really was just being at the right place, at the right time, knowing the right people and being in the right shape. And, that's really what it came down to. I mean, I was just 19 when I was cast as Sindel, which I know it's kind of like to think about that now. I was a kid. I have an 11-year-old son right now. And I'm thinking like what I was doing at 11 and what I was doing at 19, like what an interesting experience. And who knew that, at 19, I would portray this character known as Sindel, the queen of the outworld. And then here I am all these years later. But really quickly, I was involved in fitness at a very young age, right out of high school, just kind of found women's workout world on the south side of Chicago, went to training and just became, so immersed in it. And at the time, I met my boyfriend who became my fiance, who became Shao Kahn. So Brian Glenn and I were both personal trainers downtown Chicago at a gym called World Gym. And we were both friends with John Parrish, who had been cast as Jax. And so basically John Tobias asked John Parrish, hey, do you know any bodybuilders, maybe a couple, like a boyfriend, girlfriend? And John was like, well, actually. And so they called Brian in. He was cast for Shao Kahn. And then they called me in to audition. And then I was cast as Sindel, and there you go. That's the history in the making. So
that's a trip. I mean,
I'm curious about the auditioning aspect of for a video game. Was it more of like the look and the costume, or also like what you could do physically?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what has really drawn the fans to Mortal Kombat, is the real history behind it. We had to physically do all of the action. So we were in front of a green screen, but this was before, they had the sensors that they would stick, so we had to literally do the kicks, the punches, the jumps, the drops, all of that. And I think that for us to be physically, able was a big part of being cast as the character. And then also too, like each character, I think, kind of came to life with the capabilities that we had. So for instance, I hear Sindel is like, she's kind of, the character that beats a lot of other characters in the game. And those particular movements that Sindel does were only based on how I could move. I wasn't able to do certain moves like my other colleagues, that have kind of like the very classic super high kick. And, because of the wig that I was wearing, I couldn't do the front flip. So there were certain movements that I think each character was able to really bring to life based on their capability. And that was, I think, maybe understood like during the audition process. And then it kind of gave a lot more relativity to like each character becoming its own, so
totally.
Yeah.
That's so for like example with like Katana, her high kick is so high, it creates she becomes like an anti-air character. But you're saying that that's not something that they sort of created for her before the actress came on. That was the performer, for example, Sindel's kick is unique to you, and thus it informed how the characters, like where their hit points would be and stuff like that.
I know that I can speak for myself, and I know Catalin too. I'm friends with her and I'm friends with Carrie. And I know that each of us individually can do the movements that you see.
Okay.
And I know that from my experience, they had a certain idea based on, Johnny Cage, based on like Mortal Kombat 1. And these are the kind of the movements we would like you to do, but they were willing to adjust according. So yes, like, kind of like my experience is there's like a classic still where you see Ed Boon, he's on the prep mat, and he's been showing me how to do this front flip several times. And I'm in costume, but I don't have my wig on. And I'm standing there kind of looking over because I couldn't do the front flip, not because I wasn't capable to physically on my own, but with the wig, we had to find an adjustment. So it was more of like, that's what's so unique to Mortal Kombat, is that we were able to have a creative outlet or a creative collaboration that maybe, doesn't happen now in more current day where it's animated, that they can do whatever they want with the character. So yeah, I think did I answer your question?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
Where am I going?
I'm so fascinated by this. Corey is like the encyclopedia when it comes to like video game history and lore and backstories and mythology and all that stuff. And I'm always in awe of his knowledge of this stuff, because I'm just like, whoa, I was playing Sega Master System and a Nintendo old school, I'm like, my level of knowledge stops at like the first Mortal Kombat. And then I played Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 in the arcade, and I was like, this is cool, but like Corey lived it.
I did.
So, but I'm fascinated with the fact that here you are, 19-year-old kid, and starting out, like when you were younger, let's go back to like when you're in high school. Were you in high school? Like, were you an athlete in high school? Was this something you wanted to pursue? You're like, I'm going to be in a video game someday.
That's so funny. That's a great question. It's really interesting. From the time I can remember, I was always just really physically driven. I'm a self-taught dancer.
Cool.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So after school, I would come home and I literally, taught myself how to dance. We didn't necessarily have dance studios, in Blue Island. And I grew up in a small town called Marionette Park. So like 13, 14 years old, I was, yes, very physically inclined. I was cheer team, dance team, anything I could do to just be active. Softball team. I was on the kitty cats, like anything I could do. I remember my neighbor across the street, he was a couple of years older than me. He gave me a dumbbell, and it was when like you would fill it with sand.
Yeah.
And I remember like I was in my room, like kind of dancing with this weight, like figuring out how to, so I was always really just drawn to it.
I thought you were going to say that the sand fell out of the dumbbell when you were dancing. So.
That would have been a different story.
Yes.
No sand fell out of the dumbbell, but it was it was just, it was just something that, I don't know, I was just always really driven. So meeting Brian, it's really just interesting how your life kind of plays out. I think being a part of Mortal Kombat was just going to happen. I'm at this point in my life now, I'm a mom, and I can look back at these moments, and I do believe that things in your life happen because they're just supposed to happen no matter what.
The good and the bad.
1,000,000%. So like meeting Brian, and then getting involved in a relationship with him. He was a professional bodybuilder. And as soon as I met him, we spent, going back, you asked about high school. Yeah. After like cheer and those types of things, I found the working out. So by the time I was 17, I was already preparing to compete in fitness competitions. So as I was becoming Sindel and like the youngest character ever in a video game, I was also the youngest fitness competitor in the Fitness America National Championships.
That's
at
a trip.
19.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, it was just kind of what I was really inclined. And even to this day, I'm a full-time group fitness instructor. I teach, and if I'm active at least like 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 hours a day with teaching, I'm good. I'm on idle, but if I am, sitting too long, I'll start to get really restless. So,
for everyone wondering, Lia is on a Peloton bike right now while we're doing this interview. I'm kidding.
I'm actually on a walking treadmill.
And she's got dumbbells full of sand.
I have sandals. Yes. We're making that story right now.
I don't want to derail from the Mortal Kombat conversation because I'm fascinated by it, but my son, who's 7, he loves American Ninja Warrior Junior Edition right now. He's been watching it. He's never seen it. He's now like kind of addicted to it. And now you see fitness for kids nowadays is promoted so much more than it was back when we were younger. I think back when we were younger, it was still not a taboo, but you just didn't see it as often.
Well, or Zach and I are, 80s latchkey kids, like your typical latchkey kids. And back then it was just, here's a bunch of sugar, and, it was go outside and play, sure. But there was never any sort of emphasis on being healthy. I'm so happy that that's changed nowadays.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I was a latchkey kid too. So I was walking home at 9 by myself, and
for real.
If my son was walking home by himself, I would have a heart attack.
No way.
We talk about all the time. It was a different world, just a different world back then.
and I feel so fortunate, there's 2 ways my story could have worked out. I'm at home, this little girl, like single mom home environment, really no parental guidance at all. So you guys are saying like 19 is so young. Brian and I already owned a condo.
Totally.
So it's, like we just kind of do the deal, we didn't have an excuse. Like I'm only 19. It was like, I was babysitting by the time I was 11, making money. So I had my first job at 14, hustling at the Swaparama, like selling beepers and jewelry. The things that I did, but I think that's how I was capable to, like, when the role came, when those opportunities came, I was able to really show up. In hindsight, yeah, I'm okay with how everything worked out.
Totally.
You know,
Totally.
I really am. But what is interesting is now I have a son, and he's a gamer, and he's also very athletically inclined. He's very coordinated. He's, you know, good shape. He's a good looking kid. But he's just not, he's just not motivated to like be on the team and like the go-getter he can be.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I pick him up every day from school. He has his snacks served to him. He's got all of the things that he wants to have. So maybe, you know, the driving, the motivation is just programmed a little different based on our circumstances. You know, I mean, who knows really? But.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
things have changed so much. Sorry, Corey, I didn't mean to interrupt, but things have changed so much, you know, and like Corey said, all three of us are latchkey kids. We were built to survive. And fortunately, you know, I have a child, you have a child, like you what you give to your, speaking personally, I give to my son what I did not have at the time. So whether, you know, that's perceived as like, well, yeah, I serve him his snack, or I, you know, bring him whatever every single day. And my wife says to him on a regular basis, you know, you don't know how lucky you have it. And he's very grateful and appreciative and all that good stuff. But you think about where we were then to where we are now, and you think, your son, who knows, at 19 he may be in the same boat you are. He may pursue this career, but here you are. 19 back then was what 35 is now, you know, in some ways.
I agree. And just really quickly to interject, like what Corey was saying about like the after school snacks and stuff, you know, like for my son, McDonald's is a treat.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of what I was like given. Like I was fed McDonald's, like
Totally.
that's your dinner, you know, and like here's a bag of Doritos, you know, and like you know, chugging down a 2-liter of Pepsi and like eating salami sandwiches before I went to bed because that's what was in the fridge,
right?
You know, and so it is like I'm surprised at how I just had this like internal drive to seek out different. And you know, I mean, I was just like a junior in high school, and I remember I was cooking my meals at the time. I'd met Brian, you know, and he was already kind of showing me how to diet, healthy diet. So I was eating like tuna fish and rice, and I would bring my food to lunch. And I was always academically inclined, sports, popular, active, the whole thing. But I remember like junior year and senior year, things started to shift for me because just like what I wanted to do was different. I wasn't wanting to eat the bags of Doritos or donuts for breakfast. And, you know, I'm not really sure I really don't know where that came from, because I don't come from a very healthy family. They're hardworking, blue collar, South Side Chicagoans, but I'm the only one in my family, you know, and then just at 22, 23 years of age, I moved to the West Coast for 24 years. So it's just, I don't know where that came from.
Well, I think that happens.
Game, right?
Yeah. And I think that happens sometimes. Like I grew up, you know, suburban outside of DC, and everybody, including my mom and everything, everybody, it's a very 9-to-5 town because it's, you know, centered around the government and everything. And I just saw people doing what they were doing. And this is no knock on anybody or anything, but I knew instinctively at a young age, I was like, that's not for me. I didn't know why. And I didn't know what was right for me, but I knew that wasn't it, which was kind of my spur to go out to LA and everything when I got older, which I think probably a lot of people feel that way. You don't know why you're drawn there. You just know that what you're doing at home is not really the thing you need to be doing. But I can, you know, going back to you being 19 and everything, I can only imagine that you're, you know, being the background with fitness at the time and everything, you know, it must've been like, I think a lot of 19-year-olds and the amount of work that would go into making Mortal Kombat 3 and your character and everything, like it would be easy for someone at 19 to just blow off your responsibilities. I'm gonna go out partying tonight, and then the next day, you know, you're like, oh, you don't give it your best. But I assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that your background kind of also lends you with this, you know, gumption to kind of move forward. And did it help you as a performer in Mortal Kombat? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
1,000,000%. Yeah. And I think that's a really good, just like a soft topic to bring up, is that, you know, I think that we can be products of our environment, and we can be products based on other people's choices, like our parents' choices. So we're kind of like a consequence of like what has happened, or like what we're around is like a consequence of like our upbringing. Yeah, I think based on like having the opportunity to make certain choices, I was destined to kind of get out. I mean, I wanted to get out of this small town, and growing up, you know, in that kind of environment, I was able to see, similar to what you said, it was like, you know, I saw what, like drugs and alcohol, I saw that route. I tried to hang around with that route. I tried to be in that group. I tried to hang out with those kids. But for me, it just wasn't the right way for me to go. I got more fulfillment from going to the gym. I got more
Awesome.
fulfillment. I was able to develop my own self-esteem from doing esteemable acts for myself, you know.
That's great.
And I think that helped my trajectory be able to make decisions at a very young age. And it opened the door, you know, from Sindel. They saw I was responsible, and I showed up on time, and I showed up to set, and I was able to put hair and makeup together. And I didn't put things inside of my system that were not going to help me, because I think like in my younger years of experience with, you know, trying to drink alcohol and do things like that, that space of just like kind of feeling out of control was very scary and threatening for me. You know, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to feel the endorphins and the feel good feelings from working out. And I had somebody in my life that really cared and loved about me. You know, Brian and I, we were best friends. And to this day, I still call him my guardian angel. You know, we talk often. We're still great friends. You know, and my grandmother had passed away when I turned 14. And she was kind of the person that I always had in my life, that I identified more as my mom. You know, she was there for me after school. And when she passed away, I kind of was just like, what am I going to do? Like, who am I going to have in my life to like protect me? And I met Brian. I was 16 going on 17, and I was sneaking into a bar for a dance contest.
Oh, okay, good.
And,
Just to clarify.
He was the bouncer at the door, and he was like, I'll let you in, but you have to promise you're not going to drink. And I was like, that's fine, you know. And then of course like this fight broke out, and it was, you know, we're there underage. And so
oh no,
my best friend at the time, she wrote my phone number on a napkin, and she gave it to him as we were trying to leave before the police came in. And he called me the next day, and we were together every single day for like the next 7 years. And he's, you know, 6 or 7 years my senior, so he was a little older, but he really, I really feel like he was divinely set or sent into my life. And then it was really up to me. You know, I was the one that pursued becoming a personal trainer. I was the one that pursued moving out to the West Coast. And I've built a career, you know, for 30 years now as a fitness instructor and teaching yoga and meditation. And yeah, I feel so fortunate. And I don't know why some people get it and some people don't, because you'll see people that come from the best upbringings, and then they just have this like internal battle, and they're not, you know, divinely inspired. So I try anytime I get the opportunity to have a platform to just kind of share a little bit about, you know, how grateful I am. And what I can say is if you really want to live a healthy lifestyle, you have to find something that you just really love to do. And for me, I just really loved to dance. And so finding that rhythm in my sand weight the first time, like I was like, oh, this is fun, you know. it's just kind of been that the whole time. So
That's awesome.
And I didn't, before you moved out to LA, I know what Midway was in NetherRealm Games. They were all based in Chicago. Did you work on, because you were in Mortal Kombat 4, did you do the mocap for Tanya? Is that
No, so there's a real misconception about my involvement with Tanya.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't quite figure out.
So the character was actually created based on one of the artist's wives.
Okay.
And the wife did not want to participate in the E3 events or anything really. So they called me and they said, "Hey, Lia, would you mind dressing up as Tanya for E3?" And I said, "No problem." And so that is my only involvement with Tanya. Serena, yes, 100%.
Yeah, so Serena's the real meat on the bones here. I just wasn't sure about Tanya because I was like, I just want to get clarification on that. But Serena was a much, I imagine, and I hope you elaborate on this, a bigger experience. Like, I mean, there's cutscenes and Mythologies, Sub-Zero. There's, full costumes and everything, and you're interacting with other characters. I think, did John Turk play Sub-Zero in that? And I love that costume so much. I love your costume too. The costume designs, I could just talk about it forever. But how different? Well, and just one thing about Mortal Kombat 3, what was the how long was that experience of filming those moves? And then versus Mythologies, how long was that experience to film that?
So Sindel was probably the most tedious and the most like time consuming. And when I say tedious, I don't mean like boring. It's just like a lot of repetitive movements like based on how punching. They were correct, right? And it was at the point where they were still taking images. So there were 7 images per movement. So as you see that full punch, for me, it was kind of a more 1, 2, 3, 4, like a flip.
So it was actually pauses, like you were actually doing the move, like they weren't filming the movement. They were filming, they were just taking pictures of each, almost like stop motion animation.
Yeah. Correct. Okay. Still shots. Yeah. And there's other movements that I do. There's like many of us do this where it's kind of like this, I don't know what you call it, but it's like this high jump where I'm like in this crouched pose. So there's a set of 3 wooden steps. And so I'm on each step for an image, for a still shot. And then they take those still shots and digitize it. And then that's how the whole movement is created. So it was hours, it was going in for a fitting, and then it was going in to do these action movements. And then Brian and I did a day on set where we were photographing for the side cabinet, which was really cool. But it was oh my gosh, we had a blast. It was so much fun. That's and then awesome. Serena was not much physical repeat for me because they already had me. They already had my image, so they could just add or take away and put me in the costume. In real life, I was there in costume for the acting part of it. So the movie making part, the storytelling part. And yes, that was with John Turk and Rich DeVizio. And that was, probably one of my favorite experiences of all time, just because we did it. We were just kids, like I think I was barely 21, 22.
Wow.
But I thought I was a real actress then. So like this is really happening.
It's something funny that Zach and I always talk about, because we are technically a cult movie podcast from movies 70s, 80s, and 90s. But obviously there's a massive cross section with Mortal Kombat fans. Yeah. But one thing that Zach and I do talk about frequently in these movies, that there's an X factor where you can just tell, and it comes off screen, that everybody was having a good time behind the scenes, and you can feel the love. And under the lens, and I think that's one of the reasons I loved Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero so much, is quote unquote the cutscenes were cheesy. I love them to death, but at the same time there was something magical about it. I felt the love that everybody I assume and I hope had behind the scenes that like you all were making something. I mean, you were taking Mortal Kombat into a new area, you know, whether that succeeded or not, it didn't matter, because at the time you were breaking new grounds with these characters and everything. And I swear to God, it comes off on screen. You can feel the love behind it. Am I correct at all in my assumptions?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And, you know, and that's the beautiful thing about being a part of this, you know, this experience and this franchise. And now, you know, something that will remain forever is like to this day, you know, John Turk and I are still good friends. I had dinner with him and his wife in San Diego. We went to a fan signing just this last year, and we went and did the deal, and then we were staying at the hotel, and John's like, I got to get a workout in. I'm like, me too, you know. So we work out together. We did a workout together, and if I need anything, if I have any questions, I can reach out to him. If I, you know, need any support in any way of like, you know, I'm going to go on this podcast, or so-and-so's reaching out to me, or do you think I should do this? You know, we all kind of watch out for each other. Carrie and I, Carrie is like, you know, one of my dearest friends, especially in this space of like, so-and-so's calling me, or they want to interview me for a book, or, you know, I go to her. She's kind of like a mentor, like a big sister. And we've always had that kind of relationship. You know, you see a little bit of us at some of the E3 shows. We were much younger then, but we were always like sarcastic and, you know, kicking back and jokes. And we're all like that, you know. And like I mentioned, I'll mention again, you know, with Brian, I'll call him, ask him questions like about NFTs or Bitcoin or whatever, you know, or diet. I want to get back in shape. What do you think I should do? You know, and I think John Parrish, you know, Philip On, because we're all unique to our own maybe groups outside. So when we find each other and we're together, it's like we're all so similar. And I mean, months, years can pass, you know. Sal is one of my dearest friends. I can call him any second, ask if I need anything, you know. It's really just such a gift. So when we all met, it was like seeing a best friend that you didn't know you were best friends. And yeah. I think that's what's so unique. And really to head that all off was John and Ed, you know, and John Tobias's love for this. I mean, you know, like, again, like we're so young, but when I think back, you know, of my interactions with John and like how passionate he was about telling us a story, and how Sindel's story was and what it was about, you know, and taking the time with us. This is not something that's just like an idea, let's see if we can make money on it. This was like John's blood, sweat, and tears. You know, this was his creation, his baby. And Ed was always so supportive and great, and they worked so well together. And so everybody around them, you know, I mean, what a gift. But yeah, I'm glad that you feel that. And I think that's what draws the fans. And even to this day, I mean, every day I've got a new message from a new fan on some part of my social. And I feel so bad because I'm not, you know, that type of like a character celebrity, you know, air quotes. But I do interact and support my fans in any way that I can when I can. So yeah.
And how was it going from, you know, Mortal Kombat 3, it's obviously still pictures, you said, to, you know, full acting and being in front of a blue screen and interacting with other actors and everything? How I know that it is a different experience, but how did you tackle that versus Mortal Kombat 3?
I think it was very age appropriate. I think I was really ready for it. And so I think that because it was current with the times, you know, I had been personally taking a little bit of acting classes. I was going on a little bit of auditions. So it wasn't so brand new and foreign. And because I had been on the set with Midway and been around those people, it was really kind of just like a further progression of MK3, you know. But it was a lot more fun because it wasn't so serious. Like the still hold, you know, I was able to have the freedom and a couple of lines to act and, goof around.
And through your performance, like create Serena and actually bring her to life in a way that you couldn't do with Sindel.
Correct. Yeah, that was a really fun experience, and a lot of input again from John, and others that were on the set. There's a couple of outtakes where I really want to get this one line correct. I'm sure you might have seen it. It's like a bloopers, and it was just so much fun to be able to kind of play, even though it was, a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I would like to do it again.
Bring Serena back. for just a few minutes, how long did it actually take? I mean, like when a typical day, are we talking like an 8 or 10 hour day for you?
Yeah, it was probably an 8-hour day, and then go back to do any type of pickups. Again, It was so long ago, but we got it all in. I think I might have done 2 different shoot days, because I had my scenes with Rich and then I had my scenes with John. And I remember my day with John, he actually drove me home. So I think it was like a full day. We were just at Midway, and I for some reason I didn't have my car. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean, that's just from what I remember was 2 days.
It's a lot of work. I mean, I think that's what people need to understand too. This, whether it's video games, voiceover, screen acting, it's acting, and then it's a challenge, and there's an art form to it. You were talking about, and I want to come back to it as well, a lot of your fitness career, your yoga, your meditation. I had this moment when you were talking about this, that there's so many fans for this franchise and the characters, and they're so adamant about it. And this is not disparaging towards this fandom, but not necessarily maybe people who think about a certain type of diet, a certain type of exercise. And so it makes me think there's a professional wrestler named Diamond Dallas Page who created his own yoga called DDP yoga. And it's very popular. It's very popular with people that wouldn't typically do yoga. And I was a kindergarten teacher, and I used it with my kids when they were like, I don't want to hold a pose for very long. And like, well, let's do this. It's a little more action based, and it makes me think and wonder that there's a whole market out there. And I mean this in like the best way. There's a whole market out there to appeal to these fans of going, well, that's somebody I thought was so cool in a video game, and this is a way for me to work out and like have fun at the same time. I think there's a whole niche market you could tap into there.
It's funny that you should mention that.
Oh.
So I'm actually in the works. I'm working with somebody on producing my own podcast, and kind of accessing though the Twitch space.
Yep.
And different ways, obviously YouTube, and developing a channel where I will be a host. We are considering calling the podcast Spiritual Warrior, and
awesome.
Really opening up the conversation and the dialogue, and having people come on as guests to share with us how they define spirituality, or what a spiritual warrior may look like or be like, or what they've gone through. And then with that, sharing some of my yoga teachings, meditation,
Awesome.
Having different guests that have different facets that they can speak about, nutrition and wellness. And so that's I'm softly working in that space.
Well,
so
you're speaking my love language, because you need to do that. I will tell you just personally that I brought meditation and yoga to my 5 and 6 year olds, on a regular basis, and I saw the benefits from doing it every day. And then
he also brought it to his 44-year-old friend too. So
that's true. That's true. As someone who's been through, we've all had adversity in life. And as someone who's been through some major challenges, and knowing that yoga was there for me always, and meditation was there for me always. And, it's so important to tap into that. If you can, clear your mind, focus, and embrace a different path that most people mainstream, quote unquote. It's still, I think yoga has definitely gone more into the mainstream nowadays, and it's great. When we were all kids, it was like a hippy dippy thing, you know, oh, you eat granola, man, you know, it's like this kind of thing. Now it's like everybody does yoga. Meditation, it was used to be perceived as this thing as a guru sitting on a mountain with this long beard in a little loincloth. Now it's like something you don't have to do for very long, but you can get a benefit from doing it every day. I think you need to do that. I think it's beautiful. You know, if more people did it, there would be more gratitude and less, you know, guilt and less anger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many benefits. So I'm just,
I really appreciate
you have to go
that.
you have to do that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I've ended up meeting somebody who reached out to me, who is a music DJ, and his name is Matt Bishop. And I've now, you know, had enough phone conversations with him, and he's demonstrated to me his real desire to help me in this space. And he's like coming on board as like my creative director, and we're having, you know, bi-weekly phone calls, and he's
Awesome.
really kind of helping head the way, because there's a lot of space in this technology world that I'm not capable of. And you know, and I've been thinking about it for a long time, and you know, I really appreciate this idea about moving forward myself, and you know, embracing where I am, and talking about, you know, being a spiritual warrior, and kind of coining this as a part of my current brand, and how I continue to develop and grow in my space as a teacher and as a voice, and having different platforms. You know, it just so happens that I was Sindel, or I am, you know, the you know, OG queen of the Outworld.
Hell yeah.
It's really just, it is a gift. And I think, you know, I remember going through my teacher training for yoga, and we were talking about the Buddha, you know, readings, and I'm, you know, The Power of Positive Thinking. I found that book at the library when I was 17. So I definitely feel that I'm divinely inspired and destined to kind of be on this path, maybe similar to you can relate as like a teacher, you know.
Yep.
And you know, but I remember listening to these readings about Buddha, and you know, Jesus as well, you know, and all of these really kind of inspirational, motivational stories that we hear. And I was like, you know, I mean, we really need a single mom who's going to like demonstrate what being a spiritual warrior is, because I can sit on a mountain under a tree and namaste all day. But where the real yoga and the real meditation work is when you're able to be active with your child and mindful, you know, and raising my son is one of the easiest things I've ever been given the gift of, honest to God. And I've been single since I had him. And it's all the other responsibilities that, you know, a single person is not necessarily capable. You know, there's a dual income that needs to be happening. And so there's a lot of pressures and realities that I had to face and trudge. And, you know, it was extremely difficult for me, extremely. And at the same time, I was becoming a yoga teacher, you know, and I'm reading these stories, and we're talking about how important it is to be on the mat, and how important it is to meditate. And I'm going through these struggles. I'm going through the bill collector's calling, and the car being repossessed, and you know, these real things are really happening. And I'm like, you know, I'm gonna get through this. I've got to get through this. But once I'm through it, I've got to talk about this, because we have ideals and like this thought that when everything's okay, then I'll meditate. When everything's okay, then I'll do yoga. When I make more money, then I'll eat better. You know, I was barely making enough money, and I was buying my produce at the 99-cent store. I mean, that's the reality of this time that I went through. And that was when I was really practicing what yoga is and what meditation is. And the way that I would like to continue to like develop my voice as a teacher is about mindfulness and moving meditation.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times where meditation falls extremely short, especially from being a student, is when the teacher or the instructor is just having you sit there with your own thoughts. I don't want to think my own thoughts. I need to think other thoughts. I need to be reminded that I should breathe in for this amount of time, that I should breathe out for this amount of time. I need to be reminded that when I'm opening up my chest, I'm releasing stagnant energy. I need to be reminded that at a cellular level, I can regenerate and turn over. I need to be reminded that I'm shedding layers. I need to be reminded that this is temporary.
Yeah.
I need to be reminded of those things. And I had to do that for myself, as myself, while I was taking classes to become a yoga teacher. And, and it's been a really interesting journey and an incredible experience, because I think that gives me more compassion and capacity to identify with all of us that struggle. And the struggle is real. And I don't rest my hat on being a single mom. I now make, double the income because I did the work, and I do it as a group fitness instructor. And I have the freedom to pick up my son and to drop him off, and we can buy organic or we can buy local. I can buy what's on sale, or I can buy the expensive.
Or you can go to McDonald's for a treat.
1,000,000%. We just had McDonald's yesterday. Yeah. No, it's so true. And
how dare you? You should not be eating McDonald's. You know that's terrible for you. Come on now.
Don't you know they put feel-good drugs in that? Come on.
They do. They definitely
My wife would be like, they wash their meat with ammonia, right? Oh my God.
Well, they clean up. And this is the thing. Yesterday I was like, hold on. I was like, should I get a chicken sandwich? And I'm like, no, I'd rather
fish sandwich.
I go, no, I'd rather have the clean fake meat.
Yeah. I want to tell you really quick, if you're interested, there's a guy named Joseph Campbell who I champion him all the time. He wrote a book called Hero with 1,000 Faces. He wrote The Hero's Journey, kind of pinpointed that the mythology and religion, how there's all these parallels, and how everything, we're all on a hero's journey, right? If you view it that way. But there's a documentary out called Finding Joe. It's free on YouTube, and it just profiles people, from everyday people to celebrities, quote unquote, musicians, actors, who have used these kind of principles to really just embrace who they are fully as a person and follow their bliss, right? That's my tagline on my emails. It's just says, because I feel like, and the root of that is, when you do what you love, all that positivity will flow into it, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen maybe 5 years later. Sometimes it takes forever. But that journey we're all on, we're all going to get there if we can stay the course, right? If you believe that this is
the course of positivity and love.
Totally.
1,000,000%. Love kills the demons. That is something that I have learned. And I deal with that, dealing with my, personal relationships that are so difficult. I now have relationships with people that are my relatives, that I love at a different capacity, because I was willing to do, some real spiritual growing. And I think that that's where we get kind of confused, is, we're contained and limited by this shell of being. But I also think it's important to be human and eat McDonald's,
totally.
You have to be here.
Get a McFlurry.
Yeah. But then also have this access to realize, whoa, I can grow spiritually and have a relationship with a family member or an ex-spouse or a colleague that, and I can show up different. And wow, look at that. It doesn't necessarily make it, here's my air quotes again, better, but it gives us a space to be a part of a solution. And I think that's how I'm trying to raise my son too. It's just, he's in 5th grade now, and the new kid at the school, and
that's tough.
But yeah, but the good thing is
Can be.
he's so solid in who he is. But it's fifth grade is tough. I mean, no matter what, it's just like, and he's a boy, and he's got like his mom to check in with, and he's like, Mom, but I always tell him, I'm like, you're gonna work it out. Just how can you be so-and-so's friend, or what's really going on here? Or I say, like, we don't know that person's story. Like, we don't know what they're going through. So just, let it roll off your shoulder. Like, it's all going to be okay.
And it's nice that you have that time and everything to do that with your son, I'm not saying anything negative about my mom, but we just didn't have these kind of conversations when I was younger. It was more like, you go over there and watch TV and eat some cereal. Again, she wasn't a bad mom. I'm not saying anything negative, but I get it. Your energy is finite. And if you're working a full-time job, and, I understand that more now, but it's wonderful that you have that kind of time and that space and that energy to impart those beautiful, words of wisdom on your son.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Corey. And, it's kind of like what Zach said is, we get to show up and be a parent that we, I didn't have any parental guidance. And even now, with COVID hitting and everything, I've found my way back to the Midwest, and I'm now living with my mom, who's a senior, and she bought this beautiful home, and my son and I have this space. And so I'm living with 3 generations, and I have a relationship, with my mother that I never had as a child, but I'm still the mom in the relationship.
Yeah.
And, and that's a space that for a long time, there's like this way, I kind of like what Zach said about, like, be your own hero. You kind of have to get to a point in your life where you have to realize that maybe there's nothing to fix, right? Like, it's always going to be a sour spot for me about my relationship with my mom. I wish I had something different. I don't need to go to therapy to figure out why. There's a mom hole and there's a dad hole.
Yeah.
And I can find other relationships. I have a relationship with my son that's incredible, and I'm going to raise a man. And this boy has a space he can feel feelings, and I can support him. And that's going to be something that would have never have happened. So there's gratitude, but I'm also going to honor the fact that I'm always going to have a mom hole. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I've learned to really own my voice. I wanted the power of positive thinking to wash away the relationship with my mom and my dad. I wanted things to be different. I wanted her to act a certain way. I wanted him to be a certain way. And I still wish that I had that experience. And I think that's always just going to be my truth. Mm-hmm. But I've come to terms with, I'm the one that, comes home and does the deal. And I'm the mom in the relationship. And that's okay. That's how God thinks that I'm supposed to be. So I'm okay with that. But I think that it's going to be an interesting experience to watch how my son grows in having a mom who supports him having feelings.
I was going to say that's huge. Like, I can speak for Zach too, growing up in the 80s. I think especially for guys, we were always told, like, you cannot show any emotions and you can't cry, you can't feel this. And to this day, I'm 44 years old. I can barely cry in front of my wife. Like, I hide it. Like, it's like so weird. But I just wanted to say thank you as a guy and all the guys in the world for giving your son the ability or the space to feel his emotions and sort of ending or trying to cut off that stereotype, because hopefully it's this generation. It's Zach's son too can feel emotions, unlike us who were all cold and dead inside because of it. But I love the fact that you're giving him some emotional space as a guy to feel his feelings and everything.
Thank you, Corey. That means a lot, especially coming from 2 stellar guys here.
Hey,
and you're creatives too. So you've got all kinds of feelings, and yeah, I mean, we're definitely in a space, and he's 11, and he's always he just knows who he is. And I
That's
am
great.
always going to honor that. And his name is Honor, actually. So
Oh,
he's
nice.
always really truthful. And, you know, hopefully he doesn't start to dim his light. I just want him to feel fully supported. And if I'm lucky, maybe I'll meet a man who can come in and help us all shine our bright lights.
Yeah. You know, and you're uplifting his energy, just being who you are, being your authentic self. And you know, you're a spiritual warrior, like you said. So I love that. I think you are, sounds like you're doing a fantastic job. And you know, what was that song by Rosie Greer back in the day? It's All Right to Cry by Free to Be You and Me. So mine was like, listen to this, it's good. It's okay to cry.
It's
Like,
okay.
Okay, Mom. I love you. But you have been this has been such a wonderful journey having this conversation with you today. Really has. Like, we've talked video games and fitness and spirituality and the whole gamut. So if people are not inspired by the end of this, what is wrong with you listeners?
They need to go to McDonald's.
Go to McDonald's, get yourself a fish fillet and you know, a McFlurry, and you'll be good to go. So I'm from Detroit, so, and then you know, Corey's from Maryland, so we I love how I say Detroit, but it's the Midwest. You know, you say Chicago, it's the, like, I want it to be the East Coast. It just sounds cooler to me. But people will be looking out for Spiritual Warrior, perhaps a podcast very soon.
Yes.
On Twitch as well.
And can they find you in Chicago doing yoga, or anything you want to promote from there?
Yes. I'd love to share, if any fan is interested in checking out my website. It's liamontelongo.com. I just offer my 8x10s autographed. I ship them out. It's really super easy, pretty cost effective. That is it for right now. I do teach for Equinox. That's a private health club, so they would have to be a member. But I'm happy to, you know, have somebody come in as a guest if they want to come and take a class. And that's it. I'm really not, you know, kind of a low key, just doing the deal, teaching the classes. But soon, I hope to be really accessible through Spiritual Warrior.
Awesome. Leah, thank you so much for being on our show. This was awesome. I hope you feel good. I hope you.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I just met two best friends.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, most people are like, I'm not a fan of doing podcasts, but after I've come on your show, I'm a fan of doing podcasts. I'm like, okay.
I think they're great. I mean, God, the world that we're in right now, thank gosh we have this, you know, technology.
Totally.
I look forward to listening to Spiritual Warrior when it comes out, and hopefully one day we can, you know, meet at a con or something when the world
That'd be great. Yeah.
opens back
and,
up again.
Yeah, and maybe I can reach out to you both, and we can kind of have you on as guests. That'd be awesome.
Anytime.
Would love to.
We love that.
We're just gonna kind of like, you know, have a real open conversation. What does Spiritual Warrior mean to you? And then any type of cross marketing that we can do, and helping support just this whole space for people to have connection.
Well, one of the things, I mean, that's one of the things we pride ourselves, we think that separates us. You know, a lot of these shows that we compete with, they're very snarky. You know, they look at these quote unquote bad movies and they, you know, they kind of shit on them and whatnot. We try to find the love in everything. We keep everything positive because there's just so much negativity in the world. So we do love trying to always be positive, be fun. So, and I do think it comes from a positive spiritual place, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, we were knocked around a few times. So, you know.
We got the rough shots. I say to my son on a regular basis, be grateful for what you have, not what you want.
That's right.
We practice that on a daily. So grateful to have you on our show.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to jump off now.
Yes. Right, have a good one.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Podcasting After Dark's exclusive interview series with Lia Montelongo. And, as always, thank you for your support.
Imagine being one of the last people on Earth, being trapped alone with something not human, something always watching, something always waiting. What would you do? Where would you run? Where would you hide if you were haunted for 7 winters alone?
Podcasting After Dark presents 7 Winters Alone, a dystopian haunted house story by David Irons.
Available now in paperback and ebook.